What's good, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. Child Bernice King said, I am tired of y'all dragging my mama's name through the mud, talking about Megan Good and Jonathan Majors wanting his ex-girlfriend to be Coretta Scott King. She said, y'all gonna put some respect, okay, with a K, like Birdman. Y'all gonna put some respect on it. Put some respect on my mama's name. That's what she said, okay? She took to Twitter. She says, my mother wasn't a prop. I know that's right, Bernice. Come on with it. She says she was a peace advocate before she met my father and was instrumental in him speaking out against the Vietnam War. Please understand, ... Okay, pause for the effect. My mama was a force. You better speak on it. You better say it. Okay, she says, here's what I wrote about her a few years ago. Okay, so she wrote an article for the Pup Host, or I'm sorry, Pup Host. Y'all know I'm tired. I've been bringing y'all content, though, consistently. The HuffPost.com. Let me go ahead and read it. She says, the title is, and I'll link it in the description if you guys want to read it for yourselves. She says, A Woman Purposed to Be a King. My mother left her mark. Women and girls and all of humanity are better for it. She says, before my mother was a king, she was a Scot from Marion, Alabama, the daughter of a resilient, righteous parents, Obadiah and Bernice. Come on, Obadiah and Bernice. Yes. Okay. I love it. Obadiah is a strong biblical name. Yes. Who drove the bus to transport my mother and other Black students to school. Coretta Scott was born to a woman who supported community. Okay, she said, let it be known. Absolutely. Before my mother was a king, she climbed trees and wrestled with boys and won. Even as a child, Coretta Scott demonstrated that her gender would not deter her success, nor did it detract from her strength. Before she was a king, my mother was a civil rights activist, a member of the NAACP and the Race Relations and Civil Liberties Committees at Antioch College. Coretta Scott was determined that her life would serve to lift others. She was already a woman of great character. Before my mother was a king, she was a gifted vocalist and musician whose skill in academia garnered her a scholarship to the prestigious New England Conservatory for Music in Boston. Yes, okay. Coretta Scott's path to Boston exemplified her commitment to being a woman of excellence. Before she was a king, my mother, she reminded me of Martin Luther. Yes, come on. Bernice was taught by the best. Before she was a king, my mother was a peace advocate, a courageous leader, and an accomplished artist. When my father, Martin Luther King Jr., okay, no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't even joke like that because we know Jonathan. I'll get to him in a second. When my father, Martin Luther King Jr., encountered her in Boston, he encountered a whole woman, a woman of substance, a woman who, as the traditional Black Baptist church still sings, had a charge to keep, a God to glorify. You can tell her parents, okay? She is her daddy's daughter, okay? You better write, honey. Before she was a king, my mother had a purpose, and her marriage to a man who would become one of the most celebrated leaders in history further propelled her towards that purpose. As we commemorate Women's History Month, my mother's life continues to be an extraordinary example of how to live for something larger than ourselves and of how women carry purpose, power, and progress. Her life before she met my father contributed to the foundation for them to build a life and co-labor in the movement together. Of her, he said she saw the greatness of the movement and had a unique willingness to sacrifice herself for its continuation. Her life with my father was a remarkable display of consistency to purpose, as Coretta Scott King not only excelled as a wife and mother, but also utilized her diplomacy and gift as a singer to advocate the movement. My parents were partners, and she was a woman at the forefront of activism for civil and human rights. After my father's assassination in 1968, my mother's life without my father would become the clearest and most prevailing testament to the wisdom and fortitude which had been cultivated in her since birth. That same year, she founded the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change in my father's birth city, Atlanta. More than a monument, it is the living memorial to Martin Luther King Jr. and was established to provide education and training on his nonviolent philosophy and strategy. And I'll let you guys read the rest because it's pretty long. But she says she left her mark, right? Women, girls, all of humanity are better because Coretta Scott King was in this world before she even met Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, okay? And just because Jonathan Majors played Kang, right, in the Marvel Universe for a short time before they snatched it away after dealing with the blonde from England, okay? He says, don't compare her or Megan Good or anybody else to Coretta Scott King because Coretta Scott King is a force within herself, okay? Bernice is standing on business, and I don't blame her because he is he's doing the most with the least, right? Trying to compare this little girl from England. She was drunk and he's trying to shame her. First of all, trying to talk to this girl and lecture her while she's drunk is a lesson in futility in and of itself, right? She's sitting there crying and snotting and he's lecturing her about trying to be Coretta and Michelle Obama. You know what? Dr. Martin Luther King and President Barack Obama were smart enough to know that the woman on their arm would make them or break them. You learned that lesson a little bit late, Jonathan, because and Megan, my girl, not my girl going out as the cleanup woman, Megan Good. Oh my goodness. I mean, I just, I'm like everybody else. I'm shocked. Seriously, like just flabbergasted because people are asking for her to be recast. Like they don't even want to see her in Harlem anymore. This is completely, deterred and detracted her own career, her own reputation. And for what? A man that chose you after he got DV charges? Like, Megan, what? You went from Devon Franklin to Jonathan Majors at his lowest point. And the fact that, she's accompanying, I don't even know anybody who would want to go with a man, who would want to start dating a man after he picked up DV charges. Like anybody who is going to be looking at anybody who would try to date, him or like Martell Hope, which I just made a video about him, like after all of these things, people are going to be looking at you crazy. Because Megan Good, you were the it girl as long as I can remember. From Friday on, right? From, being in You Got Served and all these movies and like, and to be with a man who has recording of him trying to shame, and this girl was blonde from England. If you have to ask somebody, because he asked her on tape, do you know who Coretta Scott King is? If you have to ask that person, do you know XYZ person? That's not the person for you. If you're trying to shame her, if she's out partying, then obviously he could have just walked away. He should have, but he didn't. So now he's sitting in front of Lindsay looking crazy. Lost his whole career. Megan, I don't know. Maybe you need to talk to Bernice or hopefully read this article. But Bernice said, what y'all not going to do is play on my mama's name. Okay. Jonathan Majors, she said, keep my mama's name out your mouth. Like, well, seriously, because Mrs. Coretta Scott King, she was a Scott first. And like Bernice said, she was a woman and activist in her own right. Michelle Obama, she was Barack's boss. He was an intern at her law firm. She was a lawyer first before she became a first lady. She was the most educated first lady in our nation's history before Jill Biden. Okay, because Jill, she has her EDD, her not a PhD, Okay, I just want to clear that up because a lot of people think that Dr. Jill Biden has a PhD. No, she has a doctorate of education, means that it's a practitioner focused degree. But I don't want to, and a PhD is a research focused degree, just to throw that out there. But I will say this, even before the Bidens, right? Before she became first lady, she was second lady, Dr. Jill Biden. I don't want to take that away from her. But Michelle Obama, when she became first lady, she was a lawyer first. She was Princeton educated, Ivy League, coming from the South Side of Chicago. That's a huge achievement. Okay. And Mrs. Coretta Scott, before she became a king, right? Bernice listed all of her accomplishments. She was an activist, she was a singer, she was a professional woman in her own right. So for you to be trying to lecture some little drunk blonde girl, and I'm not trying to shame her more than Jonathan has, but the two don't, you know, and these men, these great men that were activists, were smart enough to know that they needed a woman, a professional woman on their arm to help propel them to greatness. Because if a woman doesn't propel you to greatness, she can have you taken from Marvel, like Kat said, scared, running down the street, trying to get away from her, and your whole career gone. And now, and you even dragging Megan Good down in the gutter with you. But Bernice said, you can do all those things. Just leave Mrs. Coretta Scott King's name out of your mouth, and y'all put some respect on it. And that's all I got for y'all. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will bring you the next video. Take care, Aces. Bye.